Okay, hey, good evening. Approximately, thank you. We've all been presidents, so we can all remind each other of what the rules are when we're up here. Okay, it's approximately 5 p.m., so we bring a meeting to order of the Bernie Independent School District Board of Trustees. We do have a quorum. We have Ms. Jessica Davila, Garrett Wilson, Dr. Thomas Price, Superintendent, myself, Rich Senna, Carlin Fryer, Donna Sharp, and Joe Tidwell. So at this time, we will go into closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding matters related to employment, appointments, resignations, terminations, retirements, reassignments, discussing purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. So it is still 5 p.m., so we will now go into closed session. Good evening. It's now 6:30, and we're going to reconvene the regular meeting of the Bernie Independent School District Board of Trustees. We have a quorum, full quorum, Ms. Maritza Gonzalez-Cooper, Jessica Davila, Garrett Wilson. We have Dr. Thomas Price, Superintendent, myself, Rich Senna, Carlin Fryer, Donna Sharp, and Joe Tidwell. So we are back in open session. And Brian, do you want to introduce our students?
Yes, sir, President Senna. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise? And gentlemen, please remove your caps. And please welcome the award-winning Bernie ISD JROTC Color Guard to present the colors. Here tonight to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge are students from Fabra Elementary.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, and one and indivisible.
And now, please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. President Senna, Dr. Price, Board of Trustees, our students from Fabra Elementary have some fantastic questions to ask the board members tonight. So, President Senna, I yield the floor to you and our Fabra students.
Great, thank you, Mr. Ladio. It's good to see you and your students.
You as well.
So I'm sure they have great questions. So kids, have at it.
You ready?
Hi, my name is Georgia Owen. I am a third grader student at Fabra Elementary, and my question is, do you have other jobs before more than school board meetings or BISD district?
That's a good question, Georgia. I have a business, but I have to tell you, I probably put as much time into school board as I do my business because I love it. And I mean, at your school quite often. I used to mentor a student there who's now in middle school. So now I've got to find reasons to visit Fabra, which I love because that's where my kids went. So yes, and I think everyone here does have a job. They can share with you what they do, you know. Yeah.
Mr. Wilson and I are both bankers, so we're finance people during the week and during the day, and this is what we get to do at night.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Samuel McGee, and I'm a fourth grader student at Favre Elementary School. My question is, have y'all ever thought about adding baseball as a middle school sport?
Would somebody like to answer that?
Let's turn this over to our athletic director, Stan, the man. Come on.
Hold on, Coach Leach.
Great question. You know, we just started.
For the broadcast.
Okay. That's a great question. We started soccer just 3 years ago in middle school. And this year we just started water polo. And so we're always looking to increase our athletic program. Right now, we got plenty of baseball teams in Bernie. And so I'll find you one that you can be on. But that's a great question, and I appreciate your interest and love for baseball. But right now, that's not something that we're looking into. Thank you.
But I will add this to what Coach Leach shared, Samuel, and that is that about 4 years ago, a group of students from one of the schools said, hey, what about middle school soccer? And that was put on the list. So it's a good thing that you're advocating for what you believe in. So thank you.
Hola, mi nombre es Evan Finelli y yo soy un estudiante de quinto grado de bilingüe en Fabra Elementary School y mi pregunta es ¿qué grado pueden aplicar a un beca or what grade can you apply for a scholarship?
Okay. What grade can you apply for a scholarship?
Me to grab that one?
11, 12. See?
Yeah. 11th grade.
11th grade.
11th grade's when you really need to start looking. We do PSAT test, and the main part about PSAT test, and help me, that's in what grade? 8th grade and 10th. The main reason for PSAT test is so that you can get scholarships. And some of our students have gotten some really large scholarships from taking the PSAT.
And I think it's great that you are already thinking about this in the 5th grade. Every year, oh gosh, it's probably 300,000, 400,000 or more scholarships are given out just by local community groups to Bernie and Champion High School graduates. And if you apply, if you work hard, and you know, my kids started saving up for their college when they were like 7, 8 years old, you know. Not that I made them work, but you know, they worked, you know.
Well, and if you're interested in technology, we have this first year is our P-Tech Academy, and you can get your first 2 years of college for free while still in high school. And that saves probably about $35,000.
My name is Nora Latios, and I am in 3rd grade student at Fabra Elementary School. One of my favorite things at Fabra is family nights. I'd like to invite y'all all to our family fitness night on September 8th at 5:30 p.m.
I'll be there.
I'll be there too.
Guarantee it.
Thank you, Nora. I have a question actually for you, Nora. What's it like to know really well the principal of your school? You can you don't have to answer that if you don't want.
Awkward.
You're doing great, Nora. You're doing great. Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Latiolis? Very good. Thank you, Falcons. Okay, before we move on to commendations, we do have to approve the agenda. We have a motion from Mr. Tidwell, Dr. Tidwell, and a second from Ms. Sharp. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Motion is approved. The agenda. Okay, Mr. Benway, we have commendations.
Thank you, President Senna, Dr. Price, Board of Trustees, and our esteemed guests. If we could have Mr. President and our board come down for our photos. Those of you who are new to Bernie ISD board meetings, and I see a few new faces tonight, we love to open up the meeting honoring our students and our staff for their outstanding accomplishments. And tonight we have several commendations, two really exciting ones that affect the entire district, and we will honor them tonight. And we have a couple of surprise commendations that only two people know about in this room, so we're excited about that as well. So let's start our commendation process tonight as we have our board up here. Our first commendation, we celebrate another national recognition as Bernie ISD was named a 2022 Innovative District by the International Center for Leadership and Education, otherwise known as ICLE. Let's give them a round of applause tonight. Bernie ISD was only one of 8 innovative districts from across the United States that were invited to share its best practices at ICLE's 30th annual Model Schools Conference. BISD's presentation, titled Put Me In Coach, Meeting the Needs of All Learners Through Transformational Coaching, was led by Chief Instructional Officer Larissa Flores, along with Early Childhood Education Director Renee Munn and Secondary English Language Arts Coordinator Dr. Jane Burton, as well as Principals Jamie Robinson from Bernie Middle School South and Krista Pomeroy from Cibolo Creek Elementary. Let's give them a great hand. At the Model Schools Conference, the BISD team you see in front of you shared details on how the implementation of an instructional coaching program has resulted in professional reflection and steady growth for teachers and students. BISD was named an innovative district for their system-wide focus on instruction and organization structures to increase student growth. Bernie ISD team leaders worked relentlessly to develop a vision focused on the needs of their students and the community. So a nationwide award, Innovative District Bernie ISD. And when you come in the boardroom next month, on that far right side, we will be adding the Model Schools Conference banner to that wall. And if you look in the back, we have the Model Schools Conference shown back there as well. So we're really proud of that, and congratulations. Let's give them one more round of applause. Our next commendation tonight recognizes Bernie High School art teacher Darcy Baird and Bernie ISD students for creating a mural which now decorates central office. Come on down. In the fall of 2020, Bernie ISD offered students the chance to attend school virtually. Mrs. Baird became an e-learning teacher for elementary art, music, PE, as well as one advanced art class. She wanted to keep e-learning students connected with each other and their school community. It was important to her to get students to feel they were a part of something bigger than the virtual spot they attended school from. This is where the idea came for a collaborative mural. Thanks to the Bernie Education Foundation for the funding and Bernie High School's support, Mrs. Baird was able to purchase, distribute, and collect supplies for the students. The components of this mural were painted mainly by kindergarten 5th grade e-learner students, along with those 9th through 12th grade students, some of the administrators from their campus, a few community members, and even Dr. Price has one up there as well. This mural reminds us that we are all in this together, and this adorns the hallways of central office. Let's give a big hand to Mrs. Baird and those students that helped create this wonderful mural. And while we're at it, can we have the parents of those students that are here tonight please raise your hands? We want to make sure we clap for you and thank you for your support as well. Thank you for being here, and congratulations one more time to these fine folks. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And now we have a couple of special commendations from Dr. Price.
Yep, we're good. Thank you. Over the weekend, well, really Friday, we found out that we, as a district, earned an A on our school report card again. This is a remarkable feat, especially if you consider what we've been through as a community with COVID over the past couple of years. And our big fear, besides our health fear, was would our students fall backwards? And we pulled together as a community great leadership, great teachers, and we are back to where we were in '94, and that was in 2019. And that's a remarkable feat, but also the state gives distinctions like stars. And the most we've ever received as a district before was 9. We received 21 stars this past scoring period. That's a great accomplishment for our students, the dedication of our teachers, and our principals, the support, because the principals had the hard job of that balance of how do you make the teachers, the students, the parents feel safe, but also holding the bar high enough to make sure that we don't continue to slip back like we did in COVID. And I want to thank our staff, I want to thank our principals, because in it, the state is only given for 3 years a report card out, and we've received an A all 3 years. We are only one of 1% of all the school districts in the state of Texas that can say that. There are over 1,200 school districts, and only 1% of those schools received an A each and every time. And so I think that says a lot about our community, a lot about our students, and a whole lot about our staff. And I just want to thank them, and I want to bring our principals up and give them a round of applause because they led us through this. So principals, come on up. I haven't been able to catch you. I'm going to get you over there. You've been busy. I'll come back. I meant to Friday. I got caught up on something, so I'll catch you. So how do you need us to squish in? It's not scorpion, squish. Come on. Semicircle. Curve up, curve up. All in nails. Okay. And our final one, and this is a very special one. Earlier tonight, whenever we talked about the district of innovative districts, the reason we received that is because we place a high value on learning, not just for our students, but for our staff. We, that whole model that Larissa shared with us and shared with the nation was how do we train our teachers up to be better and going through that process. So we encourage learning all the time. And I want to take just a moment to congratulate one of our family members, Mark Stahl. Come on, Mark. When Mark first took a leadership position a few years ago, he decided to go back and complete his 4-year degree. And we know from working with him and being part of his life how difficult that is, because you've got to do your job, have that balance with your family, and through his dedication, last Friday, he walked the stage, and we just want you to know we're proud of you. Yeah, we got a picture. Come on in. No, we wanted a surprise.
Can't smile much.
We got it. Thank you. Thank you.
And that concludes our commendations for the evening. So President Sena, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Price, go ahead.
One more quick announcement. It seems like a year ago, we had a board meeting, but last time we had a board meeting, one of the big announcements was that we expanded our SROs. And now every single campus has that well-trained person that's there to help and protect our students and staff. About 4 years ago, we created a position of a safety coordinator. And basically that safety coordinator worked with a few SROs. Since then, we've doubled in size. And what we wanted to do, as the scope of that, the scope and the needs of our community and our schools grew, we added a chief officer. And we want to make that announcement tonight. We're very proud that a community member has stepped forward. And I want to say this, we had the best pool for this. And that means how many people applied. We interviewed 8 people that were experts in their field that wanted to be here, help us. Some were already police chiefs in smaller communities and colleges, and it stepped forward. But I think we got the best. And part of it is just not qualifications, and this person has excellent qualifications, but how do you fit in our community? Because we don't want, and I'll keep going back to this, we want that fine balance. We want our children to be safe, we want our staff to be safe, but it can't be a prison-type atmosphere. So how do you do that? And so we're turning this over to Rick Goodrich. Come up here and introduce yourself to the community.
Yes, sir. So, humbled by that introduction, by the way. But so my name's Rick Goodrich. I know several of you from my time. I just most recently retired managing a violent crime task force in San Antonio. So I just retired last week and then found the opportunity to continue to give, most importantly to this community. And just to know that I have a child that's a Bernie ISD student, right? And so what greater way to continue to give the community is to contribute to their safety and welfare. And I can promise you this, 32 years of federal service, 22 as a federal agent, I've had to answer that call several times. And that matters, right? There are a lot of well-intentioned people, but there aren't a lot of people that have been tested. And I can promise you this, during my time, I've been tested repeatedly. And I stand here in front of you today with my commitment to take care of your children, our students. We're not only the custodians, but we're also their wards, right, to make sure that they continue to grow and continue to develop. We're not trying to create a prison. We're trying to balance that approach, practical approach, to provide for their security and also provide a safe environment for them to study. And so I look forward to a healthy discourse. My continued work both with the Sheriff's Office, Bernie Police Department, and Fair Oaks Ranch to do the best job we possibly can. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Price, members of the board. Thank you.
We're going to get some pictures. And I think with Hector and Rick leading the way, we are We're progressing to where we need to be. And Hector, we want to get you up here with this picture too. Come on, you're part of this group. So if we could get some pictures with Rick by himself, then with the group. Congratulations, and thank you for joining our family.
President Senna, we now yield the floor back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Brian, our next topic on the agenda is our video highlight, yes?
Yeah, President Senna, what we're going to see is a series of 3 different videos. The first one will talk about one of our summer camps, Minecraft. The middle video will be the See Something, Say Something promotional PSA that will promote awareness for our students on how to report suspicious activity. And then we will round out the video with our summer theater camp. So here are Bernie ISD video highlights.
We're a Minecraft-themed camp, and we worked towards creativity, collaboration, communication, and critical thinking, as well as character and citizenship. We worked using Minecraft to kind of hook the kids in, and we kind of guided them through with activities and lessons that touched upon each of those C's.
I did learn how to make a bubbly water tank, like have the ability to build whatever I want sometimes on Minecraft camp.
They're 100% engaged throughout the whole process, and you see the kids that might not be as familiar with Minecraft, but then somebody that does have more experience actually helps them through the process, and you see a lot of collaboration and problem solving together to make the project come to life.
We want them to walk away as better humans and treating each other in a digital environment and in a real environment with kindness and trying to bring each other up. They were able to do that. When they made mistakes, they corrected mistakes. They were able to come through it in a positive way.
We would hope to get more teachers including this into their actual curriculum, you know, whether it's math, science, social studies, just bits and pieces here and there, after school clubs, and anything in between. So we're excited to see where it goes.
School safety is very important, and it's up to us to work together as a team to prevent bad things from happening. That is why when you see something, say something. If you see or hear about dangerous or suspicious activity which could potentially put our students, staff, or visitors in danger, you should tell an adult immediately. Make sure you tell your teacher, your principal, or your SRO, or even your parents and guardians. Just make sure you report any dangerous or suspicious activity to an adult right away. You could help save lives. If you don't feel comfortable telling an adult, you can report dangerous or suspicious activity anonymously on the See Something, Say Something link, which is on every BISD webpage, or by scanning this QR code. Your tip will go straight to the administration, who will then investigate. If we all stay alert and work as a team to report dangerous or suspicious activity, we can help keep our schools safe. Remember, if you see something,
Say something.
We wanted to create a program for across all of our school district. We want to create the best fine arts department, specifically theater arts department, in the entire state across all 3 of our campuses.
I think it was also a great opportunity for the 5th coming into 6th, getting to tour the campus, the theater, learning where props go, where set pieces go, and so it allows them, I think, in August, to feel a little bit more comfortable starting middle school.
I think it teaches theater in a completely new, different way. We get to do a warm-up and games, which just kind of open you, and then we get to practice for our play, which we've been doing all week. That wasn't in 54, that was in 58. 54 was the year we had that big eye storm. It's different from what I normally do. I was actually the lead in our 6th grade play that we did, and I just thought, you know, I'm very close to my grandpa, so I was like, you know, why not the old man? And it's really funny to play him, seeing what they do.
I learned how to project, I learned how to improv, and I also learned how to put on a different, how to character somebody else, because I'm definitely not a weather woman. I also got to have an experience with some of my friends who I already knew who went to elementary school with me. So it was very fun getting to meet people who were going to North, Voss, South, and a ton of other schools.
Well, this was our first year to offer. Being our first year, we had a great turnout, boys and girls. For next year, as we continue to grow, we're hoping that we can get some more of our middle school teachers calendars available to work with us so that we can grow in our numbers as well, building our programs. So trying to collaborate and getting our middle schools on the same team, teaching them and feeding better kids to high school.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for sharing that. Okay, our next item on the agenda is visitor comments. And let me just read in advance. The board encourages comments about the district from residents of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so at this time. We do ask that each participant's comments pertain to public education and be no longer than 3 minutes. The overall time limit for comments will be 30 minutes. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion of the issue until the appropriate time during the meeting. The board encourages the public to discuss concerns with an appropriate administrator who has the authority to address the concerns. Concerns should be expressed as soon as possible to allow early resolution at the lowest possible administrative level. Finally, please be aware that the rules of decorum are expected during the public comment period and throughout the meeting. Basically, that's it. So our first speaker is Jerry Lamping. Jerry, come on up.
Good evening, President Cena, board trustee members, and Dr. Price, and administrators. My name is Jerry Lamping, and I reside in Pleasant Valley, which is on the east side of Kendall County near Voss Middle School. And I want to say congratulations to the great start of this new year, and I really appreciate all you've done over the summer for the safety and security of our schools. I retired, I was in Northeast School District and director of the Safe and Healthy School Department, so I appreciate what you guys have done and are going through. Also, as a longtime livestock owner, I'm pleased to hear about the Bernie Ag Barn at the fairgrounds. Our family always had farm animals, and we really enjoyed raising them and being with them in Kendall County. So I'm the president of the Kendall County Retired Teachers Association, which is a chapter of the Texas Retired Teachers Association. Our 150 members in our chapter are mostly retirees from Bernie and Comfort ISD, although they have some like me that retired from other school districts. You know, in recent years, Bernie and you have done an awful lot to raise this wages and benefits for your current employees, and we really appreciate that and understand that that was a big effort you went through. And also, as a district and as administrators, you all contribute to the Texas retirement system, teachers' retirement system. So, you know, you have a voice in what goes on with that program. And so I'm here tonight to tell you how desperately our retired teachers need a cost of living adjustment to their monthly Texas retirement system payment. Very important that we have that this year. So I'm asking you to please add to your agenda item 8E a request for a COLA in 2023. Finally, I'm sorry to learn about the death of Helen Shin. Helen Shin was a great teacher. She taught two of my children. In fact, she introduced them to their schooling life. And now they have benefited, my family has benefited from her. She was also a president of the Kendall County, and so we wish to remember her and all she's done for this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you for your continued service to this community. You've been at it for many, many years, and I echo our sympathies for Helen's family. She was a phenomenal educator, many years for this district, and a great member of this community. Our next speaker is Richard Herbst.
Thank you, board members. Everyone for, I'm following up with Jerry. I am with the Texas Retired Teachers Association. As a retired educator, I taught here in Bernie at one time, graduated from Bernie High, and way back when, long time ago. Yeah, we'll say that. We'll stop there. But my wife graduated there, and my two daughters graduated from Bernie High School. So we have very involved in Bernie and what this community has done for all of us. But my point tonight is that I wanted to follow up is if you could add support for a cost of living adjustment for TRS annuitants to your list of BISD legislative priorities, it would really be appreciated. Someone like Helen Shin, who is part of your community and a retired educator, if you think back real quick and do 69 or 70% of her salary when she retired in the 80s or so, you can kind of get an idea of just how much, how many decisions these people are having to make about the lack of income. And we haven't had a COLA since 2004, and that was topped at 100. It was 3% and topped at $100 a month. And we're really looking to try to build a really significant and beneficial COLA for our retired teachers. And there are just so many, and I can think of probably 5 here in the Bernie community who retired back in the 1980s and are still living and trying to live. And half of those annuitants make less than $2,100 a month. Now, I just got my visa bill, and $2,100 is not going to go very far on what I do. So there's a lot of those older educators that just donated their entire life to education. It is what they did, and so would really appreciate your support. I will be in Austin and all over this South Texas area trying to campaign for a COLA. And we have an opportunity. The the fund is financially sound. It's about 190 billion right now, and the market is kind of helping us out a little bit. It hurt us, but now it's helping us. And so we really feel like we have a great opportunity for a significant COLA for our retirees. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Richard. And thank you for your support of our retired teachers and our present educators. Okay, our next speaker is Greg Smith. Okay, Mike Stewart. Come on up, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Price, trustees. So I was at the last board meeting, spoke about school safety. So we've had some good moves, certainly some good things going on. As my letter indicated, you could imagine, I don't believe it's enough. I'm most troubled by the lack of feedback sought from the community, mostly by this body. But what's interesting is this was a consistent theme I heard as I reached out to people, district leadership not following up. I don't understand why we're not having a dialogue. I mean, I'll pontificate here for my 3 minutes, but I'm sure I'll walk away disappointed. Several school board members have suggested that there's no support in the community for a guardians or marshals type program. I didn't believe that. My circle just doesn't really indicate that. But I'm special, so I thought I'd go outside my circle. So I created a Facebook poll. Yeah, it's Facebook. I get it. But I thought he'd give us a feel for what's going on. So I left the poll questions open so people could add relevant comments. So there was some engagement there. That was good. But let's just take a quick look at the poll. I did one for a Bernie group, right? There's a ton of them out there. And a majority of the people support arming teachers and staff, bar none. I did a similar poll in my neighborhood. Again, same trend. Probably the most troubling thing was very few people indicated that this body or the district asked for their thoughts or opinion. That's troubling. Every teacher I asked said they had not been asked what their opinion was. Now, I'm not saying that their opinion, has to be taken into consideration, but that's really the first rule of leadership. So I think it's overwhelming support for a guardians or marshal type program. And I'm happy to share, I actually sent a letter with the results here. So be happy to have any dialogue at any time. My name and number's on the letter, and I think everybody knows how to get a hold of me. So I'll conclude with, there is overwhelming community support based on my observations that the community wants guardians or marshals type program, and those exist in areas around us, well proven. So let's take some action. Come on, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. Just as a point of clarification, I greatly appreciate your comments tonight. Also back in May, I have not spoken to you, Mike, but as a point of clarification, which we're allowed to do here from the dais, is I have spoken to Greg a number of times this summer, met with him, and I greatly appreciate his input and experience and thoughts. So I feel like we're listening. So thank you for your comments. Okay, our next item on the agenda is we don't have any tonight. Right. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Okay, item 7 on the agenda is the consent agenda. We have a motion from Ms. Sharp and a second from, well, I heard Carlin first. Carlin first. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Opposed? Same sign. Okay, great. Motion carries. All right, item 8 on the agenda, governance, board member reports. Why don't we start off on the right? Dr. Tidwell, do you have any updates? Security committee or?
Particularly with having new leadership in place. Their committee, the technology. One thing that I do want to emphasize from that meeting is part of what we're doing is buying a lot of things like, and this is where particularly some of the benefits we have of the recent bond is when you build a lot of schools, it unintentionally creates disparity between schools. So if you're at a campus that's been around for 5, 10, 40 years, you don't have nearly the kind of current technology and resources that other schools do. And so one thing that I really like is that, at least on the smart board option, a couple other things right now, we're bringing everybody up to parity. So that everybody, no matter where you go to school, you get the same access to the same technology. And I think if I'm right, which I think everyone will enjoy this, but please correct me if I'm wrong, Patty, I think aside from things like theaters, we are end-of-lifing or on our way to getting rid of projectors in general, and not even have to use those anymore. And so just have smart boards in all the classrooms. Is that basically correct? Okay. So anyway, I think that's the really big thing for me that came out of the technology committee is trying to focus on making sure, even if you have an older school or older classrooms, we can get you the same resources that everyone else does.
Finance committee has not met since our last board meeting. We did have a facilities committee meeting, and that's going to be reported on here shortly. So.
Okay, thanks. Garrett. Actually, you know something, you want to go, you're going to be discussing it a lot in E.
We want to wait for a couple items.
Yeah, let's just wait till then. Cool. Yeah, Jessica?
So for the Bernie Education Foundation, first board meeting is going to be August the 17th. However, last week, BEF distributed over 814 $75 Target gift cards to BISD teachers, librarians, and counselors. And save the date, September the 16th, is a BEF Birdies for Bernie Top Golf Tournament. That was a lot of fun. So you can contact Yvette. She's in the back somewhere. That's going to be from 11 to 3. So you can sponsor a team. And our first communications meeting will be August the 24th. So looking forward to that.
Great. Thank you. Maurice, anything? Any updates? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 8B, consider approval of board operating procedures. This has been distributed to the board. Wanted to see if there's any questions or discussion on this item.
I don't have any suggested changes. I'd make, no, we don't even have to, this is not an action on this.
Do we make a motion?
Or do we have to have a motion to approve it?
I'll motion for the Board of Trustees to adopt the board operating procedures as presented.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I will say that I happened to be speaking to the president of the Board of Trustees for Kerrville yesterday, and she had read our operating policies and really liked them and said they were going to snag some of our ideas. So I thought that was pretty cool. We got a compliment from the Antlers, you know? What do you think about that, Coach Leach? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, the next item, 8C, is the selection of the Texas Association of School Boards delegate and alternate delegate. And Jessica is smiling. Why are you smiling, Jessica?
Mr. Wilson's here this
So,
year.
so I'm sensing a motion from you, Jesse. Okay, well, we are supposed to have a delegate and an alternate delegate to the convention, and Garrett, it usually does fall on the newest, but you're also on the Legislative Advocacy Committee, so as am I, as am Maritza, as was Jessica last year, so I do think it's a natural.
Yeah.
So, well, somebody needs to make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to serve as the alternate.
All right.
Okay, if you want to add that to your motion, Joe?
I add Rich as the alternate.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. Congratulations, Garrett. Okay,
And as much very good opportunity for us to have a delegate there. There's a lot of information that comes out there, and I really enjoyed, and it was a privilege to serve, and you're going to really enjoy it.
you're right. It really is important. And, you know, when you look at the priorities, the reason we establish, and Garrett will get to this in a second, the reason we establish our own legislative priorities, it's important to advocate for things that are important to Bernie and our school district and how we operate it.
And we do. We have a voice and a vote there. So.
We do. So, okay, the next item on the agenda is to consider the endorsement of a candidate for the 2022 TASB Board of Directors. Now, there's only one candidate who's announced they're interested in the spot for Region 20, which is our region, the Greater San Antonio region. That's Robert Westbrook, who is a trustee in Schertz-Below ISD. I know, Dr. Price, you have a good relationship with their superintendent and communicate quite frequently. And I've gotten to know Robert over the past few years, and I think he would represent the values of our community very well. I think he's in line with how the vast majority of this community thinks. So he's the only one on the been nominated. So it's up to us if we want to officially endorse him, we can do that. And that's what is up for discussion.
Before?
Last year, I think it was Rolinda Schmidt. Last year, the year before was Rolinda Schmidt, who's out of Kerrville. And she's a good friend of our district. So we've done that before.
And the endorsements really helped me make an informed decision as a delegate last year when I was able to see which of the districts were endorsing some of those candidates. So I think it's very helpful if we believe in that person's voice.
Yeah, and I think you really want a counterbalance to the Austins of the world, if I'm making myself clear. I think I just did. I think you did.
Yeah,
I would make a motion to endorse Robert Westbrook to fill Region 20 Position D TASB Board of Directors.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. We are endorsing Robert Westbrook. Okay, Garrett, legislative priorities. Talk to us about that.
Okay, great. So we put together some legislative priorities for the 88th session of the Texas Legislature, and it's not an overly long document, so I thought I'd just read it out, if you will. The passage of House Bill 3 in 2019 included the most major modernization of Texas's public school funding in many years, increased the basic allotment to more adequately fund our schools, and begin an ongoing property tax rate reduction process to bring necessary relief to the state's taxpayers. However, rapid appraisal growth threatens to offset the property tax rate reductions seen since 2019. Additionally, compounded inflation of 12% since 2019, with no corresponding increases to the funding formulas, limits the ability of school districts to manage rising costs, recruit and retain high-quality teachers, and prepare students to meet the future workforce needs of our state. The COVID pandemic created a learning loss at the end of the 2019-20 school year and continued to impact learning during the 2020 and 21 year. Federal ESSER funds were used by many districts to implement plans required by House Bill 4545 passed during the 2021 session. However, once the money is exhausted, the requirements of House Bill 4545 will become an unfunded mandate. Yet, as it should, the need for accountability and high expectations will remain. While Texas public schools have seen a sharp reduction in enrollment growth over the past several years, those districts considered fast growth still account for approximately 80% of all statewide enrollment growth. Fast growth districts experience initial startup costs for new facilities. Based on the realities mentioned above, the Boerne ISD Board of Trustees has adopted priorities for the 2023 session of the Texas Legislature. And those are: we advocate the use of a significant portion of the state's expected surplus to buy down the maintenance and operations tax rate. Any M&O reduction should be sustainable. In addition to offsetting the significant property appraisal increases, property tax compression will help reduce recapture, which now exceeds $3 billion per year. Recapture amounts to a significant Robin Hood tax with no benefit to the local school district. Number two, we encourage the legislature to increase the basic allotment, which is currently at $6,160, in order to assist in the recruitment and retention of high-quality educators, as well as help districts deal with rising costs due to inflation. Number three, we urge the legislature to fully fund the new facilities instruction allotment, which was designed to fund $1,000 per student at any newly opened campus. Number four, we strongly support accountability and the high expectations needed to prepare our students to be productive citizens and help maintain the attractiveness and growth of our state. Whether it be a component of the increase in the basic allotment or a specifically funded part of the funding formula, we encourage the state to fund the mandates listed in House Bill 4545. And those are our legislative priorities for the 88th session.
Thank you, Garrett. I know, and maybe we can discuss in a second, 'cause I'd like to have a discussion on this, the comments that were made earlier with regards to COLAs. But just to put a little bit of background on this, the state controller, Glenn Hagar, is forecasting a $27 billion surplus in the current biennial budget, which is 22-23. Generally, his estimates are fairly conservative. Just 8 or 9 months ago, the forecast was to have a $12 billion surplus. But the economy's recovered, and there's a lot of money coming in from oil and gas, so that estimate is now up to $27 billion. That is a lot of money. The controller will announce in January of 2023 how much money is expected for the state to allocate for spending for the next biennial budget, which would be 24-25 now, or excuse me, 23-24. Now, a significant part of that, from everything we're hearing, is going to be desired to reduce the M&O tax rate. Right now, the state picks up, going back a few years prior to 2019, the state was picking up about 35% of the cost of K through 12 education, and 55% was coming from local school districts, including those who paid a lot of Robin Hood. So a lot of school districts worked very, very hard in 2019 for reform. House Bill 3 was passed. It was a good short-term Band-Aid, but it increased the percentage of state funding for schools, which for a short period of time allowed us to be without Robin Hood. This past budget year, we paid no Robin Hood, which was phenomenal, because back in 2018-19, we paid almost $11 million of local tax money in Robin Hood. That was $530 for the average homeowner in this community. It's really an outrageous Robin Hood tax. So it's with appraisal growth, it's gotten right back up there. So with $27 billion in this surplus in this budget, and probably even a greater amount of money available for the next biennial, there certainly is room to both fund the commitments of the state, and the state is committed to increasing spending by no more than the combined rate of inflation and population growth. Well, the state not only has the money to do that, they have the money to add some more money to a COLA for retired teachers, but also properly fund education and reduce tax rates. So the state is in a good position. We're just calling on the state to help us bring some relief to our property owners. And we've met Dr. Price, myself, Garrett, Maritza. We had a Zoom call with Senator Donna Campbell's office on this. I've met personally with the leading candidates for the 2 state rep positions in our district, which is House District 122, North Bexar County, as well as House District 19, which covers Kendall, Blanco, all the way up 281. And both individuals expressed strong support for what we are putting in these legislative priorities. So we feel very good about that we've got a good connection with our legislators. I'm looking out in the audience, and I see 3 people that helped us. Maritza was in Austin a few years ago, helping us meet with every single state senator in Austin. We met with them. Myself, Maritza, Dale Adams, former trustee. We had Mike from the audience, Ernie Piles, former trustee, Richard Herbst. We all were part of a team that went up and met with every single, legislator, and it was a good experience. And we're told that they know who Bernie is. That's what they've told us, so I hope so. So that's a little bit of background on this. Did you want to offer any amendment based on what we heard earlier?
Adding a COLA for retired teachers. Let me just say it. I move that we add an amendment, we amend the legislative priorities to include advocating for an increase in COLA for retired teachers.
You have
Yeah. Yeah, so the exact wording would be, we urge the legislature to support a cost of living adjustment for TRS retirees in the 2023 session of the Texas legislature.
Very good. In our state legislature has done a fairly good amount. I think Richard would probably agree over the past couple of sessions to make actuarially sound the retirement system for our teachers in the state. Some states are deep in the hole, and that's not a good thing. Their states are in bad shape. Illinois, California, but apparently Texas, we do pretty well. But at the same time, if it's been 10 or 15 years since someone retired, and inflation's been 28% in those 10 years, they've lost 28% of the power of their retirement. That's a lot. So we have an amendment to the proposal. So we need a second for that. Did we get a second? You seconded. All those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. So we've approved the amendment. Now we need a motion to approve the legislative priorities.
Second.
I think Maritza got it this time. The second from Maritza. Carlin, you got the motion. All those in favor? Any other comments on this? Any thoughts on this legislative priority? Okay. We very much look forward to having a presence. I was asked recently by one of the candidates for state rep, well, who did your lobbying for you? Did you hire a lobbyist? I said, heck no. We drove up in our cars and, we did it ourselves. We didn't hire any lobbyists. Forget that. We're not going to use taxpayer money to lobby, They do that in Washington. We're not going to do that here. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, great. So thank you, Garrett. Anything else you want to share? Okay, great. Okay, so Dr. Price, it's your turn. You're up.
It's been a very good opening. We, today at 4 o'clock, we were up to 10,688 enrollment. What we thought from our demographers, it would be 10,800 by October. I think we'll hit that number sooner than October. But we also, with it, we are experiencing some of the growth pains that we always see at the beginning of the year, traffic. And so hopefully as people understand how the buses are going to work and support and figure out some carpools, we've already seen the traffic at the campuses getting better and better. To kind of piggyback off of what Garrett and Rich shared about recapture, we did receive our notice from TEA this week that we would be back in recapture. And Wes is going to walk you through what we need to do. But this last year was the first year we were without recapture in 15 years, and we paid our money to the state over $115 million. This year we're predicting that we're going to pay about $7.5 million to the state, again, our taxpayer money, and next year over $11 million. Now, one of the problems with House Bill 3 is it limits us reducing our tax rate. And we have reduced our tax rate by 18 cents over the past few years. I would love to reduce our tax rate even more instead of sending $7 million to the state. But that is not one of our choices. It is we have to send that money back. So it's one of the problems that we're going to have to work around in this upcoming budget.
Allowed by law to lower our tax rate any further. We have to keep our tax rate at its current level, and then we have to send that money to the state. So we couldn't lower our tax rate to lower the tax burden and then be out of recapture.
House Bill 3 has what's called an equity floor, and you can only go 10% below the higher rate of maintenance and operation tax rate. We're at that level. We're at that floor. So even though our appraisals grew faster, we cannot lower our tax rate. Thus, the money generated by the tax rate doesn't stick with us. It goes to the state via Robinhood. So people get hit with big appraisals. They pay more in taxes. The state takes the money and the local district gets the blame.
Yeah. My only point is if we could lower taxes more, we would. We can't. Instead, we have to give our money away. And it hurts us in a lot of different things that we would like to do. My next topic real quick is we had our first bond sale, and I'm not going to get into a lot of the details because I think Wes is going to go over that and he sent you reports. But I think one of the great things that he did by doing a variable is that we will pay $12 million of that loan back by Christmas. And part, as we both went out on the campaign trail and talked about the bond, we talked about some things like buses and furniture and things that people would ask. So, are you going to finance that over 40 years? And we said, no, we're not. We are going to pay that back in a very short term. And that's what that $12 million, we're doing our short-term things and paying it back very quickly because we know we don't want to spread it over the life. So I think that's a good thing. And again, Wes goes into way more detail and understanding than I do, but I think it's one of our things that we should be very proud of. Ag Barn, great opening. Several of you were there for the steering committee. Remarkable when you consider that we really started talking about and taking over the Ag Barn in late May, and it was not usable at the time, and our maintenance folks did some remarkable things over the past 2 months. If you go out there, besides the paint and being a little bit shinier, inside the pens, the cleanliness of the facility, we're going to have animals in that barn next week. But one of the things that we're going to do, a lot of times when you do a good thing, it overwhelms some people. So a lot of people want to have some input about what goes inside the barn, how it's used. And the first thing I will say is I'm a provider of opportunities. I don't know how to raise a cow or a pig. I can cook it, but I can't raise it. And I don't think, that's a shortcut there. So we are going to form a steering committee because when we went into this agreement with the Kendall County Fair Association, it was for a K-12 facility. And understanding, again, go back 2 months ago, it was not being used. We knew we could only use it for a small part of that barn. Since then, we put the paint, the fence, some pins, water, and I think, again, Henry's going to go over this in a few minutes, but really remarkable from where it's come from. But one of the agreements we had the first year is that we can't be K-12 the first year. We can't jump into it because it's just overwhelming. So we're aiming at our FFA students this year, about 25 to 30 animals, and it's, from what I understand, already signed up for those animals, which is a good thing because that means that those kids last year could not participate in FFA. So we've opened up a whole new door. But if we rush into this and we open up the barn too quickly and don't plan it correctly, I think it could collapse in on itself and there could be some problems. So the steering committee that's going to be made up of some community members along with staff members are going to start planning next steps. And what does that look like? and trying to get input from people. So I'm excited about the barn. I'm excited about the opportunity to work with the steering committee. And one of the good things that did happen this year, we have a larger than expected fund balance. We're going to be able to take some of the money and use it for certain things. I think we don't need it for the ag barn because I think we've used 2016 bonds, but my next thing is about safety and security. There's some things that we promised in the bond, but as we go through, we try to do more and more updates as quickly as we are. We need some extra funding, so we are planning on bringing you a budget amendment to help us with that. We also had our quarterly safety and security meeting, and this was in July. This is kind of zip by. It was in the committee. We have representation from all of our local law enforcement. We got together, and the first thing that we talked about was what we're learning happened in Uvalde and some reflection about what we can do to make sure that that doesn't happen. And Hector went over that with the group. We talked about our different audits, our internal audits that we're doing, our external audits. We talked about the addition of the SROs, the training that we need to do with not only our SROs, but our staff. And we talked about holding people accountable. Because one of the things we mentioned in May is to do some of the things that we need to do, it's not convenient, and it means locking the doors. And I'll give you a for instance. Last week, all of our principals walked their whole buildings. They looked at the doors probably for the 15th time over the summer, but we're going to continue to check them. But also making sure if our regulation is the door is locked, that they are being locked, that we're not propping them open. And when you change culture, you got to make sure that you go back and follow through. And that's something they're going to do on a routine basis and have conversations with folks about those and even document if we need to. So we spent a lot of time with that, but also we talked about this committee is not just about the hardening of the schools. It is about our buses and what do we do about traffic and what we do about training for our bus drivers to make sure that they're there for our students. We also talked about things that like the heat that we've been living with this past year, this past summer. What are we doing? We had all of our athletic students back and running, and what are we doing to making sure that they're safe? But we also talked about cybersecurity, which is a big threat right now, and going through some of the things that we do, our annual network assessment, looking for vulnerabilities and penetration tests. This is one of my favorites. It's the username and password changes. It's I've checked. I joke this is my Alzheimer's test because my password now has got to be 35 letters long, and can I remember it? But it's again go back to it's not convenient. It's something we have to do, and it has been too easy in the past, not only on cybersecurity but physical security, to say we're in a good place. We don't need to do it. And so Patty and her group have really been good about that. They've also, another tester for me, multi-factor authentication. Thank you very much. And encryption, annual cybersecurity training for us all. And every time I go through that, I learn something different and to be looking for because it continues to change. Us being alerted about the phishing campaigns, and Patty and her group go fishing on their own. They go out and they send everyone, not everyone, certain groups of people, they win the lottery and they get an email and saying, hey, you won an Amazon card, click here. And we find out who clicks. And then when they click, they go to training is their reward, because you don't click those things. Deployment of endpoint protection software. Again, this is why I'm glad I have Patty, because I'm not sure what that is, but that's her job. And BARC. And BARC is very important because BARC is a monitoring system of our Google platform, and it anything that is out there that our children are on with Google, it allows us, and it looks for keywords about self-harm, about harming others, and we have been able, not about harming others more so, but self-harm, we've been able to intervene, and it's been a good thing for us already. Which leads me to the other part that we talked about. Hardening the schools, cyber, but also the emotional support. And we've done a super job, I believe, over the past few years of really honing in, hiring more counselors, putting a whole child program in place, and following up. We have, I'll go back, one of the lowest counselor to student ratios in the state of Texas. And that was a commitment, and we need to continue to do that. One of the things that Lisa talked about was substance abuse peer recovery coach, and this is through our partnership with the Hill Country Family Services, the creation of the Hope Squad, a suicide prevention and awareness project that will be kicking off. Ho Child Services is working with community resources to support our students, families, to better provide wraparound services, and we're working with Big Brothers and Sisters, Mental Health and Development Disability Center, and the University of Texas Health, San Antonio. It takes everyone as we go through this. Many things as we go through this, and Hector was reviewing where we've been and how we've gotten here, and some of the things and the tragedy that happened in Uvalde. He went back to some of the things that y'all have put in place way before me, even the vestibules and making sure those sound security things were there. We have a good start here, but what we can't do is, and we've got to remind ourselves with all areas, whether it's cybersecurity, whether it's emotional support, we have a great area, but it doesn't mean that we can be complacent with any of these. So that committee now, Hector was leading it, and now he's going to share that with Rick as we move forward and meet on a quarterly basis.
And I just want to say one thing I didn't mention here in my comments, and just thank all of our agencies that we coordinate with. I mean, at those meetings we have City of Bernie, City of Fair Oaks, County. We also have, with our growth to an SRO at every campus, that's something that pretty much all our neighboring districts would love to be at, but they're not at. And the only reason we can do that is because those other government entities, the cities and the county, have set it as a priority as well. And that's really not just from a budgeting perspective. Not only do they help hire those folks and give us access to them, but it also means that that's more folks from the community that know schools, know our people, and have a lot of experience in working security inside schools. And so just really grateful to the support from our surrounding agencies and governments.
I'll echo that, when I spoke to county commissioners or city council members, to them, the request for more SROs was, their attitude was, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. It's something we got to do. And I know we have Kevin Klarner here tonight, and he, for the Sheriff's Department, he oversees the SROs from the Sheriff's Department, and is very selective and very careful who you select for this important job. So it's greatly appreciated. I did have the opportunity to speak to trustees from Comal, Fredericksburg, Kerrville, Comfort, surrounding hill country districts, and I'll echo what Joe said. From an SRO perspective, many of them are getting up to 1 for every 2 schools, and we're at 1 for every, and of course, with Hector being housed out of the high schools, we'll have a little bit of extra help there. So that was a good thing. So I appreciate those thoughts. Thank you, Dr. Price.
Got one more thing. And this is important because, earlier today we talked about our scorecard from the state and scoring the 94, and I think it's worth repeating that we are one of 1% that have gotten A's every single year. But part of the reason I think that we've done this is that we've had our own scorecard, and we've had that since I've been here for the past 5 years. And really, if you look at that scorecard, it holds us to a higher standard than the state does. And we want to continue that, and part of that process is every year going back and making adjustments. Last year, we met all but one of our goals, and the reason we didn't meet that was the career college military readiness. It's because it's a lagger goal, and that means it goes back to, help me, Larissa, when is it? It's 1 year. And we were in COVID, and a lot of tests couldn't be taken. I think we're going to bounce back, and we're going to blow that away. I've sent to you our recommendations, and I'd like to come back next month and spend some more time on it and adopt it. But one of the things, and Larissa's going to go over this later, the state periodically changes up the star. I've been through this before where it was tabs to toss and I forget all the names, but they make the changes. One of the things in the past when they changed the test that they've done is they used the first year that they changed the test as a benchmark year, and they don't count it. Well, this year we're going to do some major changes that Larissa's going to go over, and they're still going to count it. So usually what we do is we go with these goals, 2-year goals. We're recommending 3-year goals because the next year we think there's going to be a learning dip. And I don't think with us it's going to be a big dip, but there's going to be a dip. So all of the goals are very aggressive, but they're more 3-year lines. And if we hit them by chance in 2 years, we can adjust them and make them higher. So it gives us some flexibility because part of what we want to do is, and we mentioned this at Convocation, STAR is very important, but it's not the only thing we do. And a lot of other great things that we do out there, and we want to make sure that we have time to focus on all those great things. And I don't want any of our teachers waking up in the morning thinking, ooh, STAR's great, or going to sleep thinking, oh my God, I'm having a nightmare because what if one of I can't make it? It's got to be, again, balance in life. We made some adjustments on the customer service and human capital. One of those we're recommending is we felt like the district service and the employee engagement basically did the same thing in surveys, so we're recommending eliminating one. But the rest, you can see the adjustments. We've done very good considering that last year was weird. We thought coming out of COVID that it was going to be normal, and I've said this before, normal is not all it's cracked up to be, and we had to adjust again. I think this year will be even better as we go through, but it's here. If you have any questions, be sure to reach out to me. We'll bring it back for an action item in September. And
repeated school districts that got A's, depends on what you use the denominator, but there were 103 districts in the state that have gotten A's for all 3 years that they've actually given the letter grade. So we were one of those 103.
It's out of 1,200. It really is. It shows the quality of the community. I'll go back. A lot of times what goes on in our schools is a reflection of our community and the values of our community and the values of our teachers. So it's a hard job. I think one of the most difficult jobs during COVID, and it has been an educator's job. And we're blessed. We have 2 openings right now. A lot of school districts can't say that. And when you talk to the teachers that are leaving the profession, some of it is financial, but some of it is the lack of respect and the being beat up, whether it's on social media or some of the letters that they've gotten over the past couple of years. And I think we've gotten to a point in society where people feel like they can say everything, and our teachers are the ones getting the beating for it. And it's so one of the things you do real well is show appreciation for our staff, whether it's coming in, sitting through Convocation with us. I know y'all visit, you tell them, you send notes. They appreciate that. But we're in a good place right now with only having the 2. One is a science teacher at the academy, and one's a bilingual teacher, and both of those are just very difficult in general to find. I'm sure we'll get it, and we've got a great HR. We'll find them within the next couple of days, but we're in a good place.
You know, it's interesting you share that, Dr. Price, because I was reading yesterday that Austin ISD has something like 300 open teaching positions. I'm thinking to myself, they're 7 times our size. If you divide 300 by 7, that's like 43. That would be like us having 43 openings. How do you function a school district with those number of openings is beyond me. I have a question before we move on to the next item on the agenda. I have a question for Coach Leach. Coach, how sweet is it to beat Alamo Heights at anything? Pretty sweet. It's pretty sweet. Well, it happened again with the state accountability ratings, right, Dr. Price? We did.
I don't know what they
By a
meant.
nice margin, I'll add. Okay, moving on. Okay, just had to get that little point in there. Okay, our next one. Larissa, you're up.
I've got a meeting with them tomorrow.
Send them my love.
Okay.
Their score was a 91 for Alamo Heights. Did some research. Well, good evening, Mr. President, Dr. Price, and members of the board. I have two presentations for you this evening. The first one will begin, will be a review of our summer 2022 program. So in the teaching and learning department, we were very busy this summer. Everything, of course, ties back to our student, our scorecard under student success and human capital. Let's start with summer school, which was a huge project, our largest summer school to date. I'm going to start with our elementary. What I have for you are the list of the programs, the number of staff that were hired, and the students that were enrolled in each of those programs. So as you can see, at elementary, that was housed at Fabra Elementary this year. We had a total of 33 staff members that were hired to service 330 students for those various programs. Last year, we started a Jumpstart pilot where we took students K through 2 at Cibolo Creek to get them oriented to their campus before school started. This year, we ramped it up to all 7 campuses. So we were able to hire 23 staff members that worked half a day to service over 200 students. And this happened at all 7 of our elementary campuses. And you can see a beautiful picture there of Dr. Price reading to the students, which he loved.
And I will tell you, visiting those campuses, teachers were so excited, and the principals that I was able to visit with, because they really saw the impact for these children getting that head start before school and being able to assimilate and into the school environment. So it was a good thing for our kids.
And we ensured that during Jumpstart, the curriculum was all hands-on and STEM focused. Our secondary summer school program, which was housed at Bernie Middle School North, those are the multiple programs that we were offering. We did hire a total of 42 staff members, and we serviced over 535 students in those various programs. So in summary, both elementary plus Jumpstart and secondary, we hired a total of 98 positions and serviced over 1,000 students. What's also very important and I wanted to share with you is the House Bill 4545 acceleration, which was the majority of our services for our students this summer. In elementary, we had in grades 4 through 5. Those are the number of minutes that translate to the number of hours that were earned for accelerated instruction, and also for our secondary students, grades 6 through 9.
If I remember correctly from that House bill, that was mandatory yet unfunded.
That is correct, sir. And so just staffing alone for our summer school program, we had a total of 37 teachers for House Bill 4545 at both levels. At 16 days at $280 a day, that's over $165,000 just for the staff. That does not include the busing, the meals, the curriculum, the time that it took to create that, and the data collection that has to go along with it, because if we get audited from the state, we have to be ready to turn that over.
And on the mandatory side, not just mandatory that we offer it, but mandatory for the families to provide their students to attend from the state.
Yes, sir. Many efforts are made to ensure that.
It's one of those good things that on paper and whenever whoever put it together, it sounds great, and it benefited our kids. No doubt. The funding part's going to be the hard. We used ESSER funds, and those are one-time funds. So to continue this type of program, just the House Bill 4545, it's going to be impossible to continue.
Well, that's why we have it in our legislative priorities, because I'm glad you quantified that, Larissa, because we have to let our legislators know, hey, we're happy to do this. We want our kids to catch up, but it's a cost, and you mandated it. So they don't, yeah.
Larissa,
yes, sir.
Whenever you have the summary at the top, what was last year's, how many teachers did we employ last year?
Not as many. I don't have that in front of me. Maybe Dr. Howard.
No, that's
would
okay.
know.
I was just, I know that it's like threefold.
Mhm.
It's tremendous what the teaching and learning department did, pulling this together and servicing the number of kids.
Yes, sir. Moving on to the second part of our summer, the summer professional learning opportunities. We started with our new teachers, and we were welcome 87 new teachers to our Bernie family on July 20th and 21st. It was a 2-day orientation. We started with a wonderful breakfast, and then it was followed by 1.5 days of intense training to orient everybody on the Bernie way. Then the following week, we had Bernie U, which is a conference-style professional learning for all of our teachers. We had 127 sessions, over 386 participants, which is over half of our teaching staff. Out of all the surveys that were turned in, over 98.8% agreed or strongly agreed with the content that was relevant and actionable for their work. We were also able to have daycare for our staff members, sponsored by the Boys and Girls Club, so that was available as well. Then the following week, when teachers were back on contract, August 1st to the 9th, they were engaged in full days of training, both at the campus and at the district level. So that was the schedule that they followed, with 2 work days. And that's it. Those are the 2 summer programs. Okay.
Thank you, Larissa.
I don't really have a question, Larissa. I was just going to compliment, you know, when you look at the numbers, the student-to-teacher ratio, especially when you go back to the summer school, I mean, the emphasis was obviously not on just, it wasn't on cost containment, it was on getting the right thing done for the students. I mean, there was 10, 11, 1 to 10 ratio in there. Some of the classes I was had a little bit more, but I just think it's a great effort and really shows the emphasis in getting the students caught up.
Okay, I will continue now with our STAR data review for 21-22. Of course, everything that I'll be presenting to you tonight ties directly to our scorecard under student success and increasing the percentage of students at the meets and master's grade level. Just as a reminder, each test has 3 levels of passing performance. An example here is 3rd grade math. The approaches is 53%. Correct, the meets is 75 and the masters is 88. For all of our district goals, we set them at the meets percentage.
And that's a change from, remember, a couple of years back when we were using the approach. And that's what, a lot of times when you see state data out there, they're using the approach level. And
we want our kids to meet grade level.
Yeah.
So that is our goal. I'm going to start with grades 3 through 5 mathematics. So each slide in front of you is laid out with a visual representation on the left with the totals and the percentages for each grade level on the right. On this first slide, this is the all student group for grades 3, 4, and 5 in the math test. So you can see Bernie ISD, those are the number of students that were tested and the percentage at the meets percentage compared to the region and the state. You can see we're well above both in grades 3 through 5. The second slide is our special populations for that subset. So in, the 3 main groups that we look at is our economically disadvantaged, our emerging bilingual, and our special education students. And there you can see the breakdown of how many of those students tested in each grade level and the percentage of their passing at the meets level. As a reminder, some of our students take the test in Spanish in grades 3 through 5, and these are those results in each grade level.
And just to point out the obvious, one of the things, look at the few number of students in these levels. So the numbers are skewed when you look at percentages.
Moving on to grades 3 through 5 reading, same layout, the bar graph on the left and the grid on the right. Each grade level, 3, 4, and 5, how many students tested. This is the all student group and the percentage at meets compared to the region and compared to the state. And again, above both. Our next slide is our special populations. Again, our economically disadvantaged, emergent bilingual, and special education students. And again, some of our students do take the test in Spanish, and those are the results. Moving on to grades 6 through 8 math, same layout again. Our students in 6th, 7th, and 8th that tested, again, the all-student group. Now, these are not the students in 8th grade that take algebra. That will be in a different slide, compared to the region and also compared to the state. And, yes, sir. That's correct. Yeah. Yes, sir. Because they take the algebra EOC. Our special populations at the meets percentage and the number of students in each grade level. 6 through 8 reading, very similar. Our all students percentage there compared to the region and the state, again, well above. And here is our special populations for grades, star reading, grades 6 through 8. So to recap, if you take the comparison of grades 3 through 8 in math, Bernie ISD was 27% on average above the region and 22% above the state. And this is just another visual to represent that.
Question on that. I noticed this gap, and we expect us to be ahead. How does the 22% compare to before COVID, like 2019?
So I'm glad you asked me that because somebody called me earlier today wanting to know the difference. And so it was 20% in 2019.
So our gap has widened.
Yes, compared to the state. So we were above the state in about 20% in 2019. We are now at 23 and 22%.
Okay.
And for star reading, again, a 3 through 8 comparison. BISD is 20% above the region in all of those 3 grade levels and 17% above the state on average. So that was for math and reading. Our next slides have to do with science, grades 5 and 8. So we do have some students that take the 5th grade science test in Spanish. It's a very small number, but we have those percentages there. And then our 8th grade students as well, compared to the region and the state.
Larissa,
Yes,
is that the test that you gave us at one of our workshops?
No, that is STAR 2.0.
Oh.
That's the next level test we'll talk about.
That was a tough test.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
This slide, again, represents our special populations for grades 5 and 8 in science. Next is grade 8 social studies. BISD compared to the region and the state at the meets percentage. That's the all student group, and again, our special populations for those 3 subgroups. Our end of course exams, we'll start with Algebra, English 1, and English 2. Those are the percentages this is from May testing compared to the region and the state. Again, our special populations in Algebra, English 1, and English 2. And the same for Biology, U.S. History. This is the all-student group. And then our special population groups for Biology and U.S. History. In June, our students that were not successful did retest. So this is our passing percentage at the approaches level. At this point, that is our goal for these students, is to meet the approaches in order to be able to graduate. And each time we retest, our goal is 50%. And so there's some work to be done on some of those areas, but we're making some strong headway.
So am I correct in interpreting this as these are the students that they didn't approach, they didn't technically pass the test when we took the STAR test, but then
They took it again in June.
after the summer school was done, and as Carlin was talking about the 10-to-1 ratio, so this is a direct result of how well we did in summer school.
For those that came to test, yes.
Okay, because summer school is not very long. I mean, to me, that's very impressive that you would see that kind of impact in such a short amount of time. I mean, that leads me to believe we're not just checking a box there, like Carlin was saying. I mean, we're actually working to educate the kids.
Absolutely.
And it's just really impressive.
Does the state publish anything like test retest validity for any of these tests? Just
For validity? Yes, I believe there is research on their website that shows that.
Thank you.
Next, I compiled some data for a historical reference. Back in 2019, the number of tests that BISD administered was 15,300. Now remember, that's not students, that is tests. Each student takes multiple tests. And those were the percentages at the time, 90, 68, 38. In 2020, there was no testing. In 21, more testing. And that was the COVID dip that we experienced. And now in 22, with more testers and more tests, we are back at it where we were in 2019, which is quite impressive. So more tests, more students testing, but back at the same percentage. The next, I just wanted to share a comparison between 21 and 22 of where we ranked from the state, region, and the district on those 3 different levels. So now, state and federal accountability, what does this all mean? So STAR does count for 40% of the overall district accountability scorecard. So I'll be reviewing that. The state does score on a scale of A through F, except for this last year. Any school district or campus rated a D or an F was going to receive a not rated rating. There are 3 areas: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. So for Boerne ISD, there's 3 domains. Again, domain 1, 40% is STAR, 40% is CCMR, and 20% is the graduation rate. For domain 2, they look at academic growth and relative performance. How did students do from year to year in the subjects of reading and math? And then in domain 3, which is also our federal accountability, they look at academic achievement only at the MEETS level, graduation rate, CCMR, and of course our EL proficiency for our students and that are emerging bilingual. The state does take the best of domain 1 and domain 2, and those are our scores. So they took the 93 at 70%, plus the 96 at 30%, and you get a 93.9, which is a 94. Yay. Yes, good job. And so how did our campuses do? So this is a breakdown of our high school, middle school, and our elementary campuses and how they contributed all to the 94. Now distinctions. Distinctions to me are like the cherry on the top. Those are the stars that Dr. Price was referring to. So distinction designations are awarded for achievement in several areas and are based on performance relative to a group of campuses of similar type, size, grade span, and student demographics. Each of our campuses is placed in a comparison group of 40 other campuses within the state. Back in 2019, we received a total of 9 distinctions. 2 in ELA reading, 3 in science, 1 post-secondary, and 3 closing the gaps. There are multiple indicators each of these campuses has to meet in order to earn a distinction. It's not easy at all. And I'm proud to say that this year, all of our campuses total, we earned 21. And that is the breakdown. 1 reading, 2 math, 7 science, 1 social studies, 2 in academic growth, 4 in post-secondary, and 4 in closing the gaps.
In 2019 the same as 20?
No, they do differ. I would say about 50% of them are probably the same year to year, but there are always changes.
And now we have to, okay, you're going to show this. Okay, I couldn't make sure that North got their due.
Yes, and I just wanted to share the breakdown of the distinctions per campus. I'm very proud of each of these principals, administrators. Wonderful job. So as Dr. Price mentioned earlier, there will be a change. The state is resetting our accountability system. And just when we learn it and we're getting really good at it, they change it on us, and it's just fine. And then House Bill 3906, which also changes the STAR test. No more than 75% of the test can be multiple choice, which means that there will be multiple different types of question types. And And also the realignment of the reading language arts test, and all of those reading and writing components will be cross-curricular. So that is going to be a huge change. And also for the accountability, domains 2 and 3 are going to have significant changes. So it's like we're back to square one almost. No, I'm kidding. But it's going to be very different this next year and how we approach things.
I mean, I'm not sure how it affects. It's my understanding, tell me if it's the same as yours, on the push to change the ADF system, is that not enough people scored high. So it's not because of districts like ours that they put the scores out there and almost nobody got an A. And then they increased it this last year. It's better than the year before, but the concerns were still basically not enough people were getting good scores. I'm setting aside what those scores represent.
I know what
is that.
Right, correct.
I mean, so they're just trying to look for a better metric.
They're looking for a different way to measure. One, they didn't really think about the dropout recovery schools in our AEAs in our state. And so they really are working to realign that. The other thing was that they were finding districts that were earning A's, but they had campuses within that district earning D's and F's. So there was a misalignment as well. So that's one of the reasons for
when I look through the district grades as well, like just not talking about gaming a system, but it probably is in line to be revised. So if you look at things like there's a lot of charter schools that have 100 as their grade. So however the measurement is set up, and if you look at their scores across domains, they don't have 100 at all. But their overall score, however it works, I don't know what the magic is behind it. The charter school somehow gets boosted up to 100 on there. So I don't necessarily think the change is bad, and who knows what we'll see. But I know we've done really well compared to everyone else, no matter what people throw at us. So
one thing I did notice on the texasschools.org website is that for Region 20, we are the highest rating under a traditional district, over 7,000 students. Go Bernie.
Because one of the things we discussed, numbers play a big difference. Small school districts mathematically have a better chance at some of these areas, and also the larger the school districts have a better chance in some of these areas because it has the opportunity to, with the numbers, cover up some areas. I know that coming from Humble. We had some poorly performing campuses, but you couldn't tell if you looked at our accountability ratings because we had large enough numbers to offset some things.
Any questions? Thank you all so much.
Okay, thanks, Larissa, for a very detailed presentation. Okay, Henry, you are up with a facilities operations update.
Okay, President Sena, Board of Trustees, we held a facility meeting July the 12th, 2020. Present was board member Mr. Fryer and Mr. Sena. One of the things that we discussed, of course, was our bond 22, and the strategies that we were going to use. One of the things that we showed the committee was our program charter, which included all the listing of all the projects that we had listed in the bond. That we campaign, and of course bond, a successful bond that we had. The biggest emphasis on doing that was project contingency, right? Just trying to put more money aside due to the budget and due to the economy and everything that we're seeing right now. We also developed a baseline to look at in order to not only weigh our budget, but of course the prices that will be coming in when we start bidding the work. Another thing that we talked about was discussing our bond strategy, identifying projects at certain campuses and how we can shorten the duration of that project, and also look for the economy of scale, right, by combining projects, right, in order to get the best pricing that we can for our bond. The last item that we talked about was just the communication aspect of the bond going forward. Right, and one of the things that we want to go out and do is make sure that we involve our campus administrators. We'll be bringing them back during the design process to help us with that. Another thing is our department heads, all our coordinators, to include them, our students and staff, and how we're going to communicate that, the progress of our bond, and of course the oversight committee, our ELT, Dr. Price, and of course the board. That was the biggest thing. One of the things that we ended was just ending with the first year projects. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to take on the elementary, our biggest projects on the list, right? So we can go ahead and front load the bond and get it out, get it bid and get it out. So we're hoping to bid everything. The way we're projecting our schedule now is to bid everything by this fall. We'll come back to the new year having pricing and already knowing what those prices are. We'll get into construction by early spring and then start the whole process again for year 2 of the bond. Okay. The second item was, of course, the updates on the Ag Center, as Dr. Price had mentioned earlier. We were called upon right at the beginning of the summer. Dr. Price called on us and maintenance to come out. First thing we did was met with Ms. Willis, CTE director, and of course Ms. Young, the Ag Center coordinator, and just kind of talked through her bond programs, what their ideal was, what they wanted to see. One of the things that we found very quickly was that we had a very short timeline. Right, animals were coming in August, and we had 2 months to get it all done. We did an assessment of the facility itself. There was already some existing pins, just good structure, good bones on the old facility. So we took it. The improvements consisted of modifying the existing pins that were out there. We made use of those pins, got our maintenance department in there. They cleaned that up. We put new lighting at the facility, right, which helped tremendously. Brought in new fans for the animals and the ventilations. On the security side, we brought in fencing to secure the area. We worked with Patty and Santi and their team to bring in Wi-Fi data, to bring in cameras. So we will have cameras, and that's in progress right now. We're starting the plumbing. We're starting the plumbing this week to the animals, to the hogs, to provide watering for them. We've already adjusted all the cages, so that's working. And of course, painting the facility itself, and then the signage that goes with it. The other thing that the students and the teachers are real proud of, are real happy, is we updated our restrooms, put all new facilities in there. So that's good to say. And I'm just proud to say that that the maintenance team, along with, of course, Patty's team, technology, and the business service, I can't forget Wes, that we all pulled together just to make it happen in a short time. And that concludes my presentation. Is there any questions?
Just a comment that it was a great day last Friday when we did the ribbon cutting, and it was just a lot of fun to see so many students there.
Yeah.
And the support for this program is just a really great day.
Yes, sir. Thank you all.
Real quick.
Yes, sir.
I do want to, I think we knew that we had someone special when we hired Henry, and I will tell you, I've built a lot of buildings for a long time, over 30 plus years. The way he includes people is like nothing else I've ever seen on making sure that this is not just maintenance and operations rolling this out, trying to get input from our staff as we go through. And I think one of the things I shared with y'all earlier that I really like is he wants to provide these opportunities to the community as far as being subcontractors. And he's going to have the subcontractor fair. Oh, yeah. And I think that I've never seen that. And inviting the subcontractors in from the community to see what the projects are going to be so they can become familiar with them and have the possibility of trying to bid. One of the things that we're doing a little bit different than the previous bond is we're not just going to one builder and saying, do this for us. To make this work, now that's the easier way. To make this work, we're bidding out everything from the painting to the air conditioning installation, every little bit, so that we can get the very best price on these. That's the only way we stand a chance with this inflation to get those in. And he's not taking the shortcut in doing this. He's taking the more thorough way of doing it, making sure that we make those dollars stretch. With the whole idea, we made promises. We need to make sure that we fulfill those promises.
I think another thing you've mentioned, Dr. Price, I think is important on that, aside from it being very efficient, I know it takes some work on our end, but it also helps keep Bernie money in Bernie.
Yes.
So it's tax dollars going right back into the community versus to some, right, out of city business. So
I think that's a very important part.
Thank you, Dr. Price.
Thank you, Henry.
Good morning, good evening, Board of Trustees and Dr. Price. It is our annual application for the optional flexible school day. We do have to have a hearing. After we have presented the information, Mr. Bell has completed the application. Mr. Morning, of course, will take that over this next year. For your awareness, we had approximately 20 students in the 21-22 school year who took advantage of the optional flexible school day program, and about 10 at any given time throughout the year. Most of those were due to work situations. We did have a couple who were on the program due to health issues. They could not come to school, but they didn't qualify for homebound either. So there were a lot of modifications made to their schedules to assist them as well. I did ask Mr. Bell if there was anything that stood out to him about students who participated in the OFSDP. He said that two came to mind. There was an adult student he felt was probably on the cusp of dropping out, and he worked and worked and worked with that kiddo to create a schedule that worked with his job as well as his schooling, and he graduated. And then another student whose family really needed her income to work, and so she had attendance problems getting to school. He and Ms. Zigman and Ms. Howell established a schedule for her that worked with her work schedule, and she was able to continue doing both and providing an income for her family, and she as well graduated. So a great program, one we would like to continue, and we can...
Just real quick, so everyone go back to what this really is. This allows flexibility for our students, especially in the academy type setting that they're there. The traditional setting's not what they wanted. So why make them go to school from 8 to 4 like everyone else? This provides them the opportunity to put in the time that's flexible, that meets their family needs as we go forward, and it's grown each year. So it's good for our students.
Any questions?
Okay, so we go into the optional flexible school day program hearing.
That's right.
It is now 8:25. We'll open the hearing if anyone would like to come up and comment on the flexible day school day program. Okay, so it's still 8:25, so I guess we'll close the hearing. So,
Wait here in
okay.
awkward silence, Mr. Senna.
Okay.
Until 8:26.
Basically, all right, so there's, are there any questions for Dr. Stewart? And we certainly will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the Bernie ISD Board of Trustees approve the BISD submittal of the application for acceptance into the optional flexible school day program for the 2022-2023 school year.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Scott, it is time for the money.
Get up where you can hear me this time. Good evening, everybody. You have in front of you a redemption resolution for the 2014 bonds. In any year, a board may refund or refinance any or all part of the district's outstanding bonds and matured or unmatured but unpaid interest on those bonds. The 2014 bonds are the only callable bonds that we'll have in the 22-23 year. Just to give a little flavor to this, since there are no numbers attached with this resolution at this time, I'll have defined numbers when I bring forward the INS tax rate at the September meeting. But what it looks like right now is that we would dedicate a little under 3.6 million of this year's INS tax levy to the 2014 bonds. You combine that with $1 million that we put into escrow last year from the 21-22 levy, that'll yield about 1.7 million in interest savings on that $4.5 million in principal that we'll defeat. there are two capital appreciation bonds in this. Those are by far the highest interest rates. You don't see that year to year because we won't pay those the interest on those bonds until the 29 and 30 year. But just paying the associated principal of around $500,000 and the accreted interest on those bonds to date, we'll save $300,000 just on those two maturities by themselves. The rest of the maturities I want to hit are the 36, 35, and 30, and some of the 34 maturities. That'll give us a nice pockets in the 29, 30, 34, 35, 36 years to structure new debt. And when I say that, if we're going to free up about $2 million in the 36 maturity, that's 14 years out, right? So instead of if we do 30-year debt in the spring, we're planning on doing a $65 million sale in the spring, right? Instead of having $2 million 30 years out, if we were to do a traditional fixed rate financing, we could put that $2 million halfway in and save a lot of interest in that regard. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions regarding the refunding resolution or any other questions you might have related to that.
Any questions for Wes? Just, a comment that this 2014 series was originally sold in 2007 as part of the 2004 bond that constructed Champion High School, did a major league renovation on Bernie High School, built Cibolo Creek Elementary. So the 07 series was really financing the reconstruction of Bernie High School, and that was a 30-year note. And by paying off 34, 35, 36, as well as the principal from 29 and 30, we're not paying the debt off over 30 years, but more like 25 years. So, and along with that refunding, we'll save at least a couple $1 million of interest. So, thank you.
Sure.
It's good.
Sure. And I guess one other note before y'all is that there's a few $1 million left in unpaid principal on this, scheduled to be paid out from 23 all the way through 34. We don't see any good refunding opportunities right now, and so we're going to leave these bonds callable for a future year.
Okay. So, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the district's defeasance resolution.
So we have a motion by Mr. Wilson, second by Ms. Sharp. Any questions for Mr. Scott? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, Wes, you're on to the next one.
All right. You have in front of you the results of operations for the period ending June 30th, 2022. These are unaudited results. We are currently 1 week out from the auditors coming for their fieldwork visit, and we're still making small adjusting entries at that point in time, getting ready for that. But wanted to be sure you had a feel for what transpired during the 21-22 year and how that came out from the May meeting when we adjusted when we did our final budget amendment and adjusted anticipated recapture down to 100,000. We talked about we probably wouldn't pay that it was likely, even though we started with a balanced budget, we made adjustments to make that a deficit budget primarily because of recapture and because what we were seeing in enrollment and attendance at the time as we went through the year. The state made hold harmless as allowances that improve things considerably. We went through the ups and downs of filing the property value study, filing an appeal, getting good results back from that appeal, to where we talked about in May that not only would we probably not see a deficit, but that we would see a surplus. And the second page of this report does show in the general fund that the unaudited surplus at this point in time is a $3.8 million addition of fund balance. that was significantly above what I anticipated when we were talking in May. There are several things that have happened since that meeting in May. One is the we have a school bus grant from the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. I believe there were buses that we bought in 2020 or 2019 that requires that engines get on old buses that you replace with these new buses get destroyed, and they'll reimburse you for a portion of your new buses. There was about $300,000 associated with that was stuck in status for some time when COVID happened, and the state designated vendors to destroy those engines could not be accessed. We were finally able to get those buses destroyed, those engines properly destroyed and documented. John Ramirez did a good job of that, and TCEQ actually funded those monies in July. We earned them prior to June 30th, so that was a $300,000 add to fund balance that was not anticipated when we met in May. The Child Nutrition Fund on the next page, we talked at length about because of the seamless summer option, what was being added to the surplus on the Child Nutrition Fund. You generally don't think of a Child Nutrition Fund as something you take indirect cost from. If that was an option that was available to us, that we decided to take advantage of, we took $400,000, which was committed to the Child Nutrition Fund, if you'll remember, in the prior fiscal year. We could have taken up to $700,000 by the indirect cost calculations, but we just took the $4 back to make the general fund whole. So that $400,000 was not something that we were discussing in May. And then the available school fund was the big one. Whoever it is that guides the permanent school fund, that funds the available school fund, up to the per capita funding from students from around $400 a student to well over $500 a student in June. That was a $1 million plus benefit to Bernie. Normally, that happens every year. They'll adjust per capita funding. That normally doesn't have any effect on overall school funding. You either, if you're a recapture district, it can reduce recapture, but for most districts that don't pay recapture, it's just a reallocation between Tier 1 and Tier 2 funding with zero effect. We just happened to land in that sweet spot. We're the only district that I'm aware of. I talked with Tasbo Center for School Finance and Moat Casey and ran through all this with them, and those we're the only ones that they're aware of. They got this benefit as well. So yes, we got an extra $1 million that we weren't expecting, and that was what drove it up to $3.8 million. The Child Nutrition Fund, on the page after that, you'll see that the increase to fund balance fund balance when it's all said and done is $733,000. That was a $623,000 increase to fund balance. One of the things that was nice to know, we've got a grant in 21-22, a school supply chain grant, and then we're getting another one. They're both 5-figure grants, $50,000, $60,000. Those are grants that we would not have gotten if we had left that $400,000 in Child Nutrition Fund. If you have fund balance that exceeds 3 months of operations, which for the Child Nutrition Fund is about $900,000, then you have to justify that to the state, and you also have to you won't get considered for those kind of things. So pulling that $400,000 out benefited us more money, the Child Nutrition. The debt service fund, the increased fund balance was $900,000. This is where when you see a $900,000 surplus, I see a $100,000 deficit. We had $1 million that we dedicated to the 2014 defeasance during that year. Those numbers would not be reflected budgetarily because they're not expended. We put them in escrow. We'll see $1 million decrease to fund balance in the debt service fund in the 22-23 year. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah, but I think it's also worth mentioning that earlier this year was February of this year. We're talking about defeasing. We just approved the defeasance of the 2014 series, which originally was going to mature in 2036. So we'll move that up by 5 years or so. We also defeased in February of this year 2015 series, which was not going to expire until 2027. We paid it off in 2022. So once again, we paid it off 5 years early. Because I know there was a lot of comments during the bond campaign about 40 years. We don't do 40 years.
We do not. There is one extra page in this report that you wouldn't have seen in any other monthly report during this year, and that would have been the second to last, or the last budgetary comparison schedule, and that would be for the 2022 construction fund. In fact, let me go back one page, and it's worth noting we have about $315,000 left in the 2016 bond issue that Mr. Acosta is going to do. He did a good job of spending down the last amounts of those funds this year, and he'll knock out that little bitty piece this year, I'm sure. And in the course of June, we did spend about $940,000, and mostly in design costs and some technology. It was received pre June 30th. And in fact, that's the only thing that I have to say about the July report that's also in here, is that there was another $300,000 spent from the 2022 bond. I'm sure with August expenditures, I wouldn't have any basis on, but I do anticipate that that'll be about $2 million that we'll reimburse ourselves with when we receive the proceeds of the August bond sale.
Wes, I had one question on the nutritional fund balance.
Yes, sir.
Henry, we did purchase the freezer, correct? The freezer,
Yes, we did.
and that's going to allow us to buy in bigger bulk to save operationally? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. I guess last comment, we had tax collections that had exceeded percentage-wise the prior years. Up to that point in time, we had a little bit of a slowdown in June and came out about even. And with that, I don't have any other comments on the July report. Those are besides the monies that we spent out of the 2022 bond, the results of operations were within expectation.
I move to approve the budget amendments, donation report, tax collection reports as presented for both June and July 2022.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so this brings us up to our last item, which is future business. Our next meeting will be September 20th, where we'll have advanced academic reports, annual investment policy review, public hearing on the tax rate. We will approve the fiscal year tax rate, among other items. So knowing that, do I have a motion to adjourn? A motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?